Sometimes a movie comes along that instantly grips you just from premise alone, but rather tragically it's surprisingly frequent for a big screen project to let its eager audience down, squandering its potential with terrible execution and awful casting. Such is the case with the following movies, I'm afraid, all of which boast some seriously enticing ideas, but through a series of unfortunate mishaps completely wasted them to an almost unforgivable extreme. I'm Gareth, this is What Culture, and here are 8 movies that wasted brilliant concepts. Oh, and the following will definitely contain some spoilers, so you have been warned, my friends. Number 8, Terminator Salvation. The premise for Terminator Salvation was simple, and on paper seemed like an easy win for a franchise in desperate need of one. What if we stopped messing about with time travel, and instead focused on the war between man and machine that set the entire series in motion? Sounds like a pretty gripping concept if you ask me. With Christian Bale starring as resistance fighter John Connor in a post-apocalyptic thriller, Salvation should have been something spectacular. It's Batman, for crying out loud. But between Bale's overblown performance and McGee's typically soulless direction at the helm, the whole thing horribly fell apart in the end. With dull visuals, glaringly obvious twists, and lifeless PG-13 action sequences, Salvation watches like a rushed-out fan movie with no reason behind its existence. Now that may sound a bit harsh, but there's seriously nothing here worth sticking around for, folks, despite the wonderful potential of finally seeing the Skynet conflict on the big screen. What a damn waste. Number 7, The Hobbit Trilogy. The idea of Peter Jackson returning to Middle-earth to tell the story of how Bilbo Baggins came across the One Ring is one everybody was quickly on board with. What with the Lord of the Rings trilogy being such a beloved masterpiece of blockbuster movie making, who doesn't want more Middle-earth in their life, eh? But any potential the prequel had was quickly squandered when it was revealed that J.R.R. Tolkien's novel, The Hobbit, would be split into a whopping 3 separate movies. A creative decision that filled many fans with dread due to the novel's slight narrative scope and relative shortness. And with an overindulgence in shoddy CGI, The Hobbit Trilogy fails to capture any of the magic found in Lord of the Rings, ultimately watching like an empty money grab that stretches its story to an uncomfortable length, and misses much of the source material's emotional drive in the process.
Look at what they did to my precious! Look at it!
Sorry, don't know what came over me there. Number 6, Hancock. In 2008, Hancock seemed like a surefire box office hit. And given the relatively recent rise of cinematic superhero universes, its subversive story could have landed it with the label of a cult favourite. At least that was the hope. Alas, it was not meant to be, because whatever it did have going for it was eventually brutally crushed during production. The film follows Will Smith's Hancock, an alcoholic would-be superhero with a serious image problem, haunting amnesia, and years of deeply hidden regret. Oh, don't we all? It all sounded pretty interesting, until it was given the predictable PG-13 treatment that dampened its dark narrative and ridiculous humor. What's more, the story itself just falls apart at around the midway point, where it starts to introduce increasingly insane and unearned plot twists, ones that ruin the core redemptive theme of the film in an ill-fated attempt to keep things fresh. Watching it's hard going, really. Not because it's capital B bad, but because it had the potential to be so damn good. I want to know what was the most surprising superhero movie that you have ever watched. You let me know in the comments section down below, baby. Number 5, The Purge. The problem with many big budget movies these days is that they go too big too fast. I'm looking at you, DCEU. But in contrast, The Purge's main issue is that they didn't go big enough. Planning a movie around the idea that for 12 hours all crime is legal, and then offering audiences a predictable home invasion thriller. Failing to dig into its limitless premise, the film instead just tries to be a moody, claustrophobic horror about a family who attempt to survive the attacks of a masked group of purgers. And the results are rife with tired genre cliches, bland characters, and depressingly heavy-handed social commentary that feels somewhat tacked on. Despite the best efforts of stars Ethan Hawke and Lena Headey, The Purge's decision to take a big idea and turn it into a generic thriller was ultimately its undoing. Luckily, although they're also not particularly great films, its various sequels at least made the most of its core concept with a wider scope and higher stakes. But this franchise could have really started with a big old bang if the folks involved dared to dream a little bigger, darlings. Thanking you very much for tapping on this video today, my friends. And if you're enjoying what you're watching, then hit that subscribe button down below for more of these What Culture videos in your life. Number 4, the butterfly effect. On paper, the butterfly effect has it all. A genuinely decent Ashton Kutcher performance, a striking coming-of-age theme, and time travel that comes with a massive twist and increasingly troubling implications. Sounds like a winner, right? The results, however, leave little to be desired. In the film, Kutcher stars as Evan, a man who discovers he has the ability to travel backward in time using his memories, and decides to use his abilities to save himself and his friends from their awful, life-ruining childhoods. Every time he goes back in time, though, he predictably makes everything worse. Don't mess with time, folks. Because when has messing with time ever been a good idea with absolutely zero negative side effects on the big screen? I'm sure I'm about to be bombarded by examples in the comments. Leaning far too heavily into its dark themes, though, which includes a child abuse subplot and distressing animal cruelty, the butterfly effect ends up being far too concerned with disturbing viewers, rather than offering them anything resembling a compelling drama. Number 3, Suicide Squad, the 2016 version. An adaptation of the iconic DC Comics storyline, Suicide Squad follows a gaggle of supervillains including Harley Quinn, Deadshot, and Captain Boomerang, as they're recruited to secretly save the world for reduced jail time. David Ayer and Warner Brothers constantly butted heads during production, and the friction in their different creative opinions absolutely shows throughout the film. What with its tonally jarring story, bland action, and depressingly dull visuals. Spending a worryingly long time teeing up various spin-offs and sequels by shoehorning Joker and Batman into the story, Suicide Squad watches like an uninspired action flick, thus failing to dig into the sheer ridiculousness of its fun premise. That Leto take on the Joker was an experience too. That's one way of putting it. There was evidently a ton of silly yet satisfying mayhem to be created when it came to this group of super misfits, because just look at what the mighty James Gunn was able to cook up later down the road. At least we got there in the end though, eh? Number 2, In Time. In Time honestly has one of the best narrative hooks of the last 20 years of movie making, but it also has one of the worst executions, sadly. Written by Truman Show's Andrew Niccol, the sci-fi thriller takes place in the 22nd century, where time has become a universal currency and split society right down the middle. And whilst this definitely sounds like a truly fantastic idea for a feature-length tale, the film itself fails to live up to its lofty intentions, turning its inventive drama into a predictable action flick with 2 horribly miscast leads bringing it to life. Sorry JT and Seyfried. In Time's unsubtle social commentary, illogical twists, and glossed over world building leave it limping through its 2-hour runtime. And that's without even getting to that car crash moment, oh boy. With its progressive views on modern society and the growing wealth gap, as well as its clever reliance on futuristic technology, In Time should have been a much more intelligent and subtle drama about inequality than the one we got. Perhaps a TV reboot is in order. I mean, every other movie's getting one. Perhaps a TV reboot is in order. I mean, every other movie's getting one. Number 1, Legend. Legend, the 2015 crime biopic about the infamous Kray Twins, sits in a category with almost every Ted Bundy movie ever made, in that instead of creating a fully formed image of 2 violent, irredeemable men, it decides to lean into their image of being charming, simply troubled souls everyone can kind of root for. With Tom Hardy taking on the dual role, the film does little to assess the brothers' absolute worst moments, and even when it does touch on them, they're just glossed over and rarely really spoken of again. Sporting a comedic tone, the whole film works to make the pair lovable rogues, with Hardy's obvious charm and good looks doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Aiming to be a classy crowd pleaser, Legend is still violent and vulgar at times, and Hardy is admittedly on fine form, because when is he not? If it wasn't clear, I love the man, but it honestly could have been so much more had it spent more time reminding us that both Ronnie and Reggie were not good people, and shouldn't really have been placed in a film that tried to make them seem funny. It was certainly a choice, wasn't it?